Well, hello there and welcome to the living room of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Hugh Stelfers for March 31st, the day of Tenacity. That's right. And here at the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of Tenacity. We have what looks to be, here we go. Let's see if we can get it to focus. Oh, that was the first time I did it so quick there. We got two logs and a hasty woven rope between the two. It looks like some kind of garrote, if you like, the thing people use to choke folks. Hey, does that speak to the day of Tenacity? Well, it may just. It may just. Who's to say? That said, a lot of times these images are rather, what do you call, enigmatic, so it's kind of hard to make hide no hair of what they mean. That said, not altogether all too important, but what is important here is it's March 31st, and so it's somebody's birthday. So what's important around these here parts in those particular cases is wishing you a happy birthday. You know, if today is your birthday, all right? That said, a lot of other folks like to drop in, see what's going on, and maybe celebrate the birthday more properly. So if you're here for those reasons, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I dive in with the redirect, something I like to do around these here parts, and that is roll some dice. That's right, this is the Diecast birthday broadcast, so I'd like to live up to the namesake by rolling some dice. But if you've been here before and you know what's going on, hey, you just want to get into the redirect, hey, just skip ahead in the chapters. That's what I throw in there for, because I'm going to be here rolling some dice, because I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. And here I rolled us a 3 and a 6 for a 9. Now, what is synchronicity, you may be wondering? Well, my friends, as I hear it told, the universe or the higher powers that be will oftentimes put things in our path to help us manifest our goals or realize our aspirations. But a lot of times as we're getting on in this life, we often have the blinders up to what's kind of going on around us. We're very hyper or singular focused as we get on with the commute or running our errands. So we might not see the things the universe is putting in our path, or we might not lend them a lot of credence if we do see them. So this is a little bit of an exercise to help you drop those blinders, identify those signs, and start chasing after them. But how do we do that? Well, we need some kind of sign that's mutually agreed upon between us and the universe so that we can take notice of such things, hopefully. But that's right. What could that be? Your daily numbers, all right? Now, you don't have to go with the numbers I rolled for you, though it's probably advisable you take your own set of dice if you want to try this out. So you can ascribe directional values to number sets and time limits with which to go in those directions. You're essentially letting the universe take the wheel and drive, all right, and see what comes into your path. And that said, once you get out there, you pick a place maybe near and dear to your heart or someplace you've never explored before. Start taking the blinders off, like I said, and soaking up everything around you like a sponge, seeing what you're seeing. Because you never know, outside of your numbers creeping up into your day, you might start to see a little bit of a theme arise, all right? Let's take the visual representational image, all right? The garrote, all right? Now, you're probably not going to see anybody choking folks out with the thing, literally, but hey, who's to say? You might see people out there in the park with a slack line between a tree, all right? A rope tied between two logs there, if you like. Or maybe somebody's out there doing their laundry with a clothesline between two telephone poles, who's to say, all right? Or a hammock, those kinds of things, all right? I know that seems a little bit arcane, or not even arcane, but just like that's apt to not happen, and or that's so generic it doesn't make any sense. Hey, sometimes you just gotta have the perspective to say, hey, that lines up, all right? But that said, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be the garrote or the rope between two logs. So stay eagle-eyed out there, all right? Because maybe as you're getting on after this first leg of your journey, you're not seeing anything. It's just the everyday goings on, all right? Nothing special going on. Just stay eagle-eyed, stay dedicated, take it in stride. In the universe, maybe it takes a little time for it to get things into your path there, get them aligned if you like, and maybe takes a step back and look around because you might notice something small, like you're on old 9th Avenue there. That's right, could be, or 63rd Street. Okay, I take that as a sign you're on the right path. And so you bend over to roll yourself another directional value time limit. And maybe no sooner do you stand up with, let's just say, these are the numbers again, number 9. Maybe the old number 9 bus pulls up, all right? Maybe on the side of that thing, on the advertisement there, what could this be? That's right. Maybe it's somebody holding the piece of wood with the rope between, okay? I know it doesn't sound probable, but it could be something like that. Again, I would take that as a sign the universe is telling you to jump on board, all right? Or at the very least, you're in the right place, okay? But maybe you're a little apprehensive. You're digging in your pocket. Do I have the right change to ride? Turns out you have perfect change to ride if we're talking about synchronicity. But maybe the bus leaves because you were taking too much time to decide, all right? You're still new to this process. That's all right. Roll yourself the dice, or you already did for 9 minutes, right? And just follow the direction the bus was going in, all right? All told, as I hear it told, even if you miss certain things the universe puts in your path, it's apt to line things back up for you, all right? Even if you miss them, okay? So that's it. Maybe you're on your way down the street going in the way that the bus took, and you know what? Whether you catch up with it or not necessarily what we're going here for. You don't need to force things. Just see what lines up for you. Maybe at the end of this time value, you find yourself in front of an alleyway. Oh, you know what? You can use the dice to give you binary decisions, yes or no. Ascribe it to even or odd, all right? Maybe at this point it tells you, because you're thinking, should I go down this alley? And I don't really want to. Maybe the dice tells you no. Hey, perfect. And so you roll another time value, direction value, set off somewhere else, all right? Maybe as you're coming to the end of this time value, you pull yourself right up to the edge of the cross street there, and boom, maybe you run into a friend, all right? Someone you haven't seen since your old college days, perhaps, all right? And if you hadn't taken the time to stop at the corners there in the alleyway and such, you might have passed them right by, all right? Or the other way around. They would have crossed the street while you were down in the alley, if you like, all right? I think you get the idea. So that said, get out there, let the universe start shaking things up for you, stacking up coincidences, and I think you're apt to see why I bring it up, because there's a certain amount of magic that's baked in there when you start seeing things line up. So if there's anything I can wish for someone on their birthday, it's that. You're out there kind of shaking things up, all right? So I think you get the idea. Let's get in on with the birthday reading. That's why you're here. Your month is March, your day is the 31st, your sign is 9 to 11 degrees Aries, and your period is Aries I specifically, and your quality and element is Cardinal Fire. All right, March 31st, the day of tenacity. People born on March 31 are fighters who will get ahead no matter what. They have the tenacity to hang in there for the duration. And once established in a post, they will be very difficult to unseat. They may have general ideas, or rather original ideas, that remain unexpressed simply because they indeed relish holding on to a favorable position. When called upon in a time of crisis, however, they often come up with highly creative and practical solutions, winning them the appreciation of their superiors. And March 31 people can be difficult to work with, as they tend to have an argumentative and demanding nature with their co-workers. But those born on this day are, above all, very realistic about the positions they hold and shrewd enough to guarantee their survival in the job jungle. Perhaps once or twice in a lifetime, March 31 people will be presented with the opportunity to make a major change in occupation. And if they take it, they will probably succeed, though it may take time. And if they decide to pass up the opportunity, their hidden talents may never see the light. And those born on this day react well to challenges, but due to their love of security and realism about money matters, prefer calculated risks to reckless gambles. March 31 people are comfortable as the boss, but really do better as associates or partners, where their talents for innovation and creative thought can contribute to a team effort. And those born on this day can live for years on their own, but function well in family life because they often marry late. They may adopt children or even a ready-made family, acting the role of a step-parent. And March 31 people hardly impress one as cuddly types, but are quite affectionate in their own way, often expressing warmth through gentle teasing or humor. And overt love is something that unconsciously frightens them, hence their often ironic or even cynical exterior. But a deep need for caring, heightened by any parental rejection in children, demands a warm, understanding mate who knows when to back off and when to come on. Reading the signals of a March 31 person is the key to relating to them. They are very intuitive and expect loved ones to be the same way, perhaps to understand them without a word being spoken. And indeed, they are very suspicious of anyone who is too glib, too giving of promises. In March 31, people do not really have the drive to be great leaders, but are patient enough to wait and ultimately get what they want. And generally, they follow their head rather than their heart. And because they are so mentally oriented, others would do better not to appeal to them through emotion, particularly when manipulative, it says in parentheticals, but use plain common sense. And this will elicit a heartfelt response, as straight talking is what those born on this day value most. All right, pretty straightforward birthday breakdown, I would say. Yeah, they dove into a little bit of the relationships there, kind of rounded it out nicely. A lot of these days, since back to the beginning of Capricorn, have been very hyper-focused. A lot of times they'll abandon any kind of examination into the relationships, and so I like to see and make mention of when I think they kind of round things out, give a more expanded out view of the life on the whole, outside of just expanding out through the theme of the day, if you like. So you got a little bit of that here, I would argue. That said, I like to provide a little bit of a commentary, if you like, on what we just read. We make associations with days previous, the book at large, and just things I found interesting. So let's dive into it here with March 31st, the day of tenacity. All right, you're said to be fighters who will get ahead no matter what. All right, you're tenacious, and once you're established in your station, you'll be there for the long run. And to that end, you're also said to relish holding on to your position, which, while many others born in this period similarly rise high, they're usually thrust into such roles, all right, when they would otherwise be more than happy plying their trade, so long as they were left alone to do so. Creative ideas is another similarity for those born in the period, but recognition for such originality isn't very common, nor is being difficult to work with, though it has come up time to time. A little bit more rare, however. That said, you're purported to be practical, realistic, and creatively intelligent enough to survive the corporate world. And by and large, this sets you apart from the other Aries I individuals, who will more often than not let opportunity pass by, largely due to a lack of concern for such things, all right? Which can translate to complacency if one's not careful. But you're someone who sounds like they're just champing at the bit consistently, all right? And reacting well to challenge and focused on calculated risks and concern for your financial security, all right? Where other folks born in this period might be a little bit more flighty. They might take some gambles just because, hey, they're not too concerned with the outcome anyway. So pretty interesting in that respect. And I'd surmise, what with your penchant to move and shake, there's no particular angles for complacency to kind of set in with you, at least from the sounds of it, because that's something that comes up pretty often with folks, even if it's just kind of buried in the lines there. I didn't really, or buried between the lines, if you like. And I didn't really pick up on that here for you. All told, however, the reading claims you can be comfortable as a boss. But you function better as an associate, where your creativity can shine and where you can ostensibly argue with more people, it sounds like, considering you are as tenacious as you said to be, or I surmise, all right? But living in isolation or a solitary life is also mentioned, and it comes up for the period as well. Kind of a broad sweeping theme in those respects. However, the reading claims you function well in a family with a baked-in capacity for affection and showing your love through jest, all right, despite overt affection making you a little bit more uneasy. And having said that, similarities run rampant with the Aries I period. It's probably the one period I've come across where it's just everything is so similar, but everybody's got their own unique way of realizing that particular trait or nature. It's pretty interesting there. But I would say that this, with respect to humor and being an unassuming kind of nature, you're serious with relationships here. So that's not something that's popped up too much. So I would say what's a little bit different here is the depth of this examination to that end for you. A lot of these other folks, they're very isolated, if you like, and that stuff will pop up and they make great loyal friends time and time again. But at the root of their nature, it's just not a concern for them. It's very surprising. I would say this seems a little bit baked in here for you as well, but they still really expanded out with the relationship thing to really set you apart in those regards. But they do mention difficulties with leadership with you, and I would have to assume for the other folks too, especially if they're thrust into a leadership position and they didn't want as much. But that doesn't really get mentioned with them, and it kind of got specifically mentioned with you. So I just thought I would make mention of that, to say mention 9 more times there. But why that's the case, no telling. Because the straight, frank, unemotional nature works very well for others in a lot of cases. So it's a little surprising that for you, hey, it's just not quite all there. You're gonna have to struggle a bit more. But hey, perhaps that's because everything else seems to come, I don't know, rather easily for you. Arguably. In any event, that's what I had to say about your numbers and your planets. Let's move on to that's what I had to say about your birthday breakdown now. Let's move on to your numbers and your planets. Got a little ahead of myself there. Let's dive in a little bit of astrology and numerology, see what kind of connections we can further make here. Those born on the 31st day of the month are ruled by the number 4, as 3 plus 1 equals 4, and by the planet Uranus, or Uranus, depending upon how you like to say it. And since only 7 months have a 31st day, it is less common number for a birthday. And since people born on these days are often difficult to fathom, the combination of Mars, which is the ruler of Aries, and Uranus can mean a explosive, temperamental, and unpredictable nature, and also an impulsive behavior. And those ruled by the number 4 can be stubborn and argumentative since they see things so differently than everybody else. And their psyche is sensitive, particularly when it comes to rejection, which they take very hard. Generally, March 31 people are reasoners and show good sense, muting the more erratic qualities mentioned above. All right, a little bit of push and pull between the planetary dynamics there. They don't often mention this thing helps these people particularly mute these other traits and so on, but they put that in there for you here today. This was a pretty particularly personalized numbers and planets entry. They don't often do that. Sometimes it's kind of a boilerplate kind of setup there, and they'll just kind of plug the information in. They did that a little bit here, but I would say they definitely took a moment to personalize it for explain it a little bit. That said, this has been an interesting period for the numbers of planets. Let's dive into why I say that with the notes here. So the number 4 in the explosive, erratic planet Uranus for qualities of eccentricity, rebelliousness, and idiosyncratic nature, as well as not doing things in a straightforward fashion. Also, impulsiveness, all right? Qualities further heightened by Mars with its god of war-like aggressive energy, all right? Also, the drive and adventuresome ambition. But suspiciously seems a bit counter to your practical, creative bent, I would argue, all right? But for whatever reason, this period has seen untold, unconventional shakeups to the typical natures one might assume from planet rulerships. That's why I said this has been a very interesting period here, which is a dynamic one might be inclined to accept if Uranus was the ruler of Aries, because Uranus is shaking up and electrifying your typical conventions. So the fact that Mars is in the mix doing it is very surprising. And I say all that because I was kind of excited to see what qualities would arise if Uranus was in the mix in this particular paradigm where nothing seems to make sense. But here we go. The good sense, practical approach, and basically an emphasis for the more negative qualities of March and Uranus, to say the stubborn, explosive temper and being argumentative, that really surprised me here. I wasn't expecting that. It's kind of like you have this straight-laced kind of go-getter attitude, but then you can also be argumentative. I don't know. I didn't expect it here for this particular day, especially with all the shakeups that have been happening. So it was surprising in that respect and pretty interesting to find out. But like I said, I didn't expect that. I didn't know what I expected, but something. I don't know. You know it when you know it, right? But here I enjoyed it because it did surprise me. That said, you continue this through-line theme of bucking planetary convention here in no small part. I think there was only one day that really kind of met the expectations you might expect with how the book kind of relates how these planets interact with each other and rule over the person who falls underneath them. So you continue on with this through-line theme of bucking convention, and I would say that lines up with Uranus. I was kind of thinking it's going to be ironic if this is the day that kind of just, what do you call it, goes right through the hoop without hitting the rim for every expectation to shake up the dynamic that's been coming up for a Uranus type thing. That'd be ironic, but it didn't happen, so it was pretty interesting there. All told, that's been your numbers and your planets. Hopefully imparted a little bit more value there for you, kind of expanded out the notions that the book went over. And before we move on to your tarot card. That's right. This is one of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies. But hey, it's here in the book. Let's see what we see. And then we just leave it here and move on. You don't got to take it home and start dealing out the cards, all right? And sometimes these often line up with the breakdown. Also even inform it to some extent, but sometimes not. We just have to see what you drew here for you. All right, here we go. The fourth card of the major arcana is the Emperor, who rules over concrete and worldly things through wisdom, the primary source of his power. The Emperor is stable and profound, and the force of his authority cannot be questioned. The positive associations of this card are strong willpower and steadfast energy. And unfavorable qualities include willfulness, tyranny, and brutality. Oh, all right. Okay, this one was a total copy-paste job. No personalization for you here. Sometimes I'll button it with a little bit of something to kind of pull it in to say why it relates or stands as an example for this person to live up to. But none of that here. Let's see if I can kind of wax philosophical about it for you here. The Emperor for rulership over the concrete worldly matters through wisdom, a stable and profound force of authority who is not to be questioned. All right? Does that sound like anybody we know? Oh, all right. I would argue kind of does, okay? Creative, difficult to unseat, who reacts well to challenge, but prefers to take calculated risks. I would say all of that's in there through that worldly wisdom of concrete affairs, all right? With positives of strong willpower, steadfast energy. Hey, you know what? I would say this card speaks to you very well, all right? What else do we have here? But negatives of willfulness and a lack of discipline, being prone to disobedience, I would say, tyranny and brutality. If you do find a leadership position, all right, and people aren't really jiving with you because you would work better as coworkers and associates, right? You know what they said? I would say the card speaks to the pitfalls that could definitely could arise if you were to be out of pocket in a leadership pursuit, for sure, all right? At least one might argue, all right? We know you like to argue ostensibly if the breakdown applies. Okay, so any event, that's what I had to say about your tarot. Like I said, I thought it lined up nicely. It's certainly not a puzzle piece that would have been very hard to find a place in the grander picture. Sometimes you gotta like force these things home, okay? And you just think about them in terms of how they might serve as an example for someone to live up to. Other times it just speaks completely to the things we've gone over. And I would argue that's kind of what happened here. The latter, if you like. So at any event, that's been your tarot. Let's move on to your health. Here we go. The greatest danger for people born March 31st is that they will push their frustration and their anger inside. And this can result in chronic ailments such as ulcers, high blood pressure, or even cancer, all right, particularly at an advanced age. And those born on this day need to express themselves directly, and since they are often concerned with keeping the ship on an even course, or serving as a compromiser or a mediator. Physical exercise of a quite demanding nature, such as running, boxing, gymnastics, or mountain climbing, may be just what the doctor ordered. And because March 31 people like group activities, team sports such as baseball or basketball may be appealing. And since the social nature of March 31 people is usually well developed, they love group meals. And whether at cookouts or Sunday smorgasbords, they like to see others eat, talk, and socialize. What better hobby for them then than cooking for others? Few restraints need to be put on their dietary preferences. Okay, you know what? This one, highly personalized, huge pivot from the way they typically approach writing the health entry for folks. All right, that said, personalized, personalized. Let's dive into it here. What makes it special? You're warned against bottling up your anger. All right, the reading claims repressing your frustrations is poison. All right, especially as you get on with your later age. So poison to your nature, make sure you're getting that stuff out some way. Recommendation to express yourself, paramount, okay? Even if it seems impractical to your nature, all right? Just know it might affect you. There could be some historical precedents for this too. Sometimes folks born on this day, as we get into that part of the book, we kind of see it lines up. Oh, that person may have died of cancer, or they may have, been real hothead and it got them, all right? Their heart attack, whatever. So we'll have to just see. Try to remember to keep our eye on that. See if anybody died of stress here, if you like. Recommendation for demanding exercise is a first for the period, okay? Perhaps for the book as well. I don't remember it coming up, but it's rare for the book in those respects because Mars usually gets vigorous approach to exercise. And then sometimes if Uranus is in the mix, kind of shaking things up, it might take the whole conception of what's typically assumed for an exercise quality for a planet and change it up there too. So you got demanding, pretty interesting. But it's been rather absent for this period to even have the vigorous aspect, even with the rulership of Mars. And I think it's because people in this period are so committed to things that if they get into the exercise, they might overcommit because there's a lot of people who are accident prone in this particular period also. And there was even a day or two where they did warn against being too vigorous with the exercise. So they took it back from vigorous and put it to like moderate. So for you, the demanding thing, I would say be careful there, all right? Just knowing that you're going after it with a purpose, and that might not work out for you there. But it said demanding, so who's to say? What else do we have here? Exercise. So no dietary recommendations or restrictions here for you outside of the social dynamic that's baked in with the socializing angle with the with the foods there. This has been a rather common theme for this period. There's no real dietary restrictions for folks. Whereas other periods in the book, sometimes they'll be like you need a very grounded diet, fruits, vegetables, and bulk grains and the like. Or some folks are good with sugar and meat, where others aren't. But for you, it's just the social angle because it sounds like you get a lot of welfare out of it. Helps with your mental attitude there as well. So pretty interesting. Wouldn't poo-poo it, even though it might sound a little bit hoity-toity. I don't know. But it did have kind of a common sense approach to it as well, I would say. You got to get that social enjoyment, all right? So, but it's interesting the social angle comes up because it's pretty novel outside of the rest of the book being taken into that particular context. So, very personalized, very well within the theme for the period. So that said, that's been your health. Let's move on to some advice. Here we go. Use your good sense to advantage, but also trust your deepest instincts. Beware of your argumentative tendencies and open yourself to love and to affection. And deal with your fear of rejection. All right. Quick, fast, down, and dirty. You know what? Some of the stuff I don't know that we heard. And one of the themes that's been coming up, it's like we're just hearing stuff redundantly. But not that said, I don't think it has any less value. It's just sometimes we want to hear something different, right? But I also like to argue sometimes we need to hear something 38, 39 different times before we finally cotton to it. Or maybe it's said in a different way before it finally makes sense. So any event, let's get into what I had to say about what they had to say. They said, use your good sense and trust your instincts. All right, so pragmatism rules the day, I would say here. All right, fight your Mars emotions. All right, that aggressiveness, that anger that might be kind of baked in there naturally. So your instincts versus your survivalist nature versus your impulse or your emotion. This has been examined heavily this period. Instinct versus emotion versus impulse. Impulse is that one that's got the emotions baked in. Instinct, that survivalist nature. And they kind of sound the same, but they're not. All right, you got to be making sure that you're going after things in the right way. Instead of like, oh, my emotions are getting me to maybe think that's the right way. No. You got to measure it, find some self-awareness, and then kind of make your decisions that way. What else do we have here? Common examination, like I said. Beware your argumentative nature, they said. Arousing antagonists is also huge this period. Everybody but one person was arousing antagonists, and it didn't matter if they were sunny, kind of flaky, or aloof individuals that everybody seemed to love. They still arose antagonists, and I assume it was out of envy or jealousy because they were people who couldn't be shook. All right, so I think the one person who didn't seem to get a antagonist was someone who was just like it was kind of they were kind of aggressive, right? But things just worked out for them. And they were a little bit aloof, too, kind of going through life wanting to be by themselves. But they would still make loyal friends. It's very interesting, the themes that have been going on this period. I would say that applies to you as well in no small part. But maybe those dynamics are just a little bit different. All right. Surprising, this wasn't mentioned today considering the argumentative side. All right. It's a first for the period, for the whatever arousing antagonisms that didn't come up. Outside of that other day I mentioned. But besides being a bad cook, I'd say it's something to be mindful of. Or a bad look. I was saying, well, I said, right, I write bad cook. Aside from being a bad look, arousing antagonism and getting argumentative, yeah, I would say try to stay away from it if you can, or do so in a very diplomatic, manner, and so that people are going to appreciate. Like that was a good argument, all right. And getting into the law, if you like, all right. Perhaps, okay. They said open yourself to love and affection. And it sounds like you flourish in such situations, I would say. So this might very well just be a little bit of a recommendation to get you over that hill if it's something you may be on the fence about. No, so to speak, all right? Mixing the metaphors there, even if you're otherwise reserved in that fashion too. So if you enjoy it, go out there and emphasize it. If you don't have it, maybe consider it, all right? Don't be closed if you don't. That's right. So deal with your fear of rejection, they said. Not sure where this came from, I wrote. Perhaps getting passed over in your long drive to the top. Because it said it could take some time, right? A test of your Mars emotions there, or that impulse to not be argumentative, all right? Yeah, you might have to go the long haul before you finally get what you're looking for, all right? So stay committed. Sounded like you got that in the bag. Other folks will get jaded and cynical with the struggle. I think that came up towards the very beginning of Aries here. So watch out for that, all right? But it sounds like you don't necessarily have to. So learn to evolve as well, I would say. Use it as fuel to persevere if you keep getting passed over. Like I said, it doesn't sound like you have that trouble, but just something good to think about. Keep going, use it as fuel. Be open to the other possibilities as well. And it's a common theme to pass up opportunity. All right, so I would say I can rest easy if I know I'm not passing up the opportunity at the very least. Hey, it might not have hit. That's all right. All right, we didn't pass it up. So you missed 100% of the shots you don't take, right? Maybe that applies to you. So that said, that's what I'd say about your advice. Let's move on to your meditation. That's right. It's your birthday. You get something to think about. All right, here we go. Quitting is not always a bad idea. Very interesting. I can't make head or tail why this comes up for you. Well, maybe a little bit, but hey, you know what? Once again, quitting is not always a bad idea. All right. That said, I might have a little bit of an interpretation, but I'm not going to give it to you, all right? It's your birthday, your meditation, kind of defeat the purpose if I threw my spin on it and probably influence how you thought about it. Don't want to do that and mess it up for you there. That said, that's been your meditation. Let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. That's right. Let's see where you got the girth, ostensibly, and where you may otherwise be a little more atrophied. That's right. Your strengths. We knew this one here. You ready? You're tenacious. You're lucid. I like that. You're pragmatic. There we go. But your weaknesses. Oh, let's see where you're atrophied otherwise. Here we go. You're repressed. Well, we heard that one. Frustrated and argumentative. All right, I think we knew those in no small part. Oftentimes I like to make the case that our strengths are going to help us overcome our weaknesses, all right? And then I also like to argue that our weaknesses can be strengths. Just depends on the situation. I might have a little bit of hard time with the weaknesses here today making my case, but let's give it a shot here, all right? Let's dive into my tool bag, see what I can come up with. Strengths, you're tenacious. All right, how are we improving on our weaknesses with that? You're just going to get after it, all right? You're like a mole underground. You can't see them working, but they're they're doing it. They're digging those holes. They're going after it because they got to get that food and no one else can see, ostensibly, all right? You're tenacious, you're hungry, you got to get after it, all right? You're lucid, you have a clear idea about what needs to get done. You're awake to it, all right? I'd say that's huge. Some people, all right, it's not clear, it's murky, so they're kind of fighting in the dark for it, like that mole. But you know what? They can see in the dark now, can't they? They got that highly attuned eyesight. But when they get outside, they're blind. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's all in the nose. Have you seen that one mole with like the star nose? Kind of an ugly look, but they can smell like 10,000 times better than human beings or something like that. I don't know, I'm speaking out of pocket at this point, but I think you get the idea, all right? Can they see in the dark? I don't know. We'll roll with it, all right? It says you're pragmatic too, all right? You know what? Huge. It's the American philosophy from what I remember there. William Dewey and James Pierce, all right? Now, there's another one too. I'm probably forgetting him. I'm totally forgetting him, but pragmatic, all right? You get down to the nuts and bolts and you're not going to let other ideas get in there. The ones that don't even need to be in the mix. Let's just be practical, use our intuition with the things that are available to us, all right? How are we going to approach figuring out our weaknesses? Let's do so in a very refined, or not necessarily interesting, but, a practical matter, all right? And we saw it in the breakdown. It said as much about you, which is huge. This one hardly comes up, I would say. I can't really remember it coming up. That said, your weaknesses. What's the case to be made for these? Well, I'm probably going to flounder with these ones too. See if I can work a mole metaphor in there. Who's to say? All right, you're repressed, like inside your hovel there. All right, no, that's a horrible one. Repressed, how can that be a strength? You know what? Hey, sometimes maybe we do need to bottle things up, all right? You might want to explode on somebody. Hey, you know what? That might jeopardize the job or the promotion. You're able to bottle it up. It's just we got to find that way of letting that tension out, all right? Maybe talk to that loved one, all right? Let them be the one who can ease it out of you. Just be careful that you're easy with not taking to being argumentative there. You need to get it out, all right? And then let them know this is something, when you preload it. I need to get this out, so don't take it to heart when I explode here. Or maybe that's it. I don't know. But again, you have the capacity to repress, so use it sparingly and when it's needed, all right? Because like I said, it might be necessary that you hold in that anger to get the job, all right? So I could see it being a strength in that respect. You get it. Frustrated, how could that be a strength? Interesting. And you know what? If you're the leadership type, everybody's looking to you, blah blah blah, and sometimes if you're the one that everybody kind of ascribes the consensus reality of the job. Sometimes people can be frustrated in and of themselves, and they are repressing it. They can't get it out. Maybe the boss has to be the one to act it out so that they can go, all right, it's being recognized. So it could be a strength in that respect. There's a very specific case. It has to hit a lot of hurdles, a lot of wickets, if you like, within the game of croquet down up there in the corporate facilities. But you could serve as that figurehead for your underlings, if you like, to keep them on point, keep their well-being going. Sometimes when you see even your leaders frustrated, you're like, okay, they're on the same page, all right? They got my best interests at heart. Hopefully, all right? You got to be measured in the leadership area. That gets totally off point here, but frustrated could be a strength in those regards, I'd say too. Also, if you notice, use it as a waypost here. I'm getting frustrated. Cultivate that self-awareness, all right? You can use it as a strength because you're able to pick it out. Like, hey, I'm getting frustrated. What is it that's going on here? What's causing it? And then now I need to rein it in. I need to figure this out, and then let it go. Find a way to let it go. Other folks who don't recognize they're frustrated, it gets bottled up and turns into that poison now, doesn't it? That's right. Causes that stress. Causes the heart to pop at some point. All right. Take it out on the wife at home or the husband, if you like. That's not a good look either there from behind bars because of the domestic violence there. So use it when you can as a waypost. Cultivate self-awareness, I would argue. Argumentative, how can that be a strength? Well, we know if you're a lawyer, it's necessary, all right? You're not going to win the case unless you got them very good arguments, all right? Also, rhetoric, debate, hey, you know what, huge. But I think here, you know what, it's a bad look for you. That's probably why it's a weakness, because you might get after it a little bit too, impulsively, all right? We got to do so on instinct for survival, right? All right, measure those out. Keep that Mars emotion restrained, all right? And only use it when necessary, all right? It's a tool in your bag, but not one you always have to use, all right? It's got a very specific purpose, like that one job, all right? It's like sweating brass pipes, all right, to keep the moles out. So I'm way out of pocket at this point. These are some rather difficult weaknesses, but hopefully you took something from it, if not just the entertainment value of watching me flounder there, cook up a bunch of things that make any sense. All right? In any event, your strengths and weaknesses. The point is we take our weaknesses, the things that might otherwise pull us back, and use them to our benefit. All right. That said, if you are trying to improve upon them, get rid of them altogether. I often like to argue, don't get rid of them altogether, because they're a big part of who we are. All right. That said, that's been your strengths and your weaknesses. Let's move on to those born on this day. I mentioned it earlier. Something to be on the lookout. Maybe there's folks who were repressed. You might see it in them. That said, I like to focus on this, not just to see who shares your company, but use it as an opportunity to maybe start examining, figuring out our passions. And too often I get out in the world and I meet individuals, ask them what they do, and more importantly, if they like it, and a lot of times they don't. And I think, unfortunately, it's just they got into a job right out of school to make ends meet, and at the very root of it, it just had nothing to do with anything they liked to do, if they even knew what they liked to do. Because I think that's not just your passions, but figuring out what we like to do takes time, energy, and concentration to figure out. And a lot of times you're getting home at the end of the day and you're just rallying for the next. We aren't putting time into figuring out those kinds of things. Because even if we did, what would we do with it, right? Hey, you know what? We still got to figure them out, I would argue, so that we can make life fulfilling. So if there's anything I can wish you on your birthday, it's that you're chasing after a passion, or at least well on your way, by carving out the time and putting in the energy to start considering what that may be. All right? Because I think it does. It takes the energy and the time. So let's have that in the back of our heads as we dive in and see who shares your company. All right, here we go. We have René Descartes, all right? He was the French 17th century philosopher, and he wrote Discourse on Method. He was a mathematician. And the quote here is, I think, therefore I am. We also have Franz Joseph, or Joseph perhaps, Haydn, an Austrian 18th, 19th century composer, and it says Beethoven's teacher and innovated the four major musical forms. It was a string quartet, the piano sonata, the symphony, and the concerto. We also have Moses ben Maimon, Miami's Salden court physician. No, I'm saying that wrong. Also a Jewish philosopher. We have Nikolai Gogol, a Russian, G-O-G-O-L, Gogol, Russian short story writer, novelist, and responsible for a work by the name of Dead Souls. We also have Cesar Chavez, a migrant worker unionist, Albert Gore Jr., U.S. Vice President, Senator of Tennessee. I don't know, was he repressed? Well, he might have looked that way. Who's to say? I don't know. But let's keep that in mind. Yeah, did anybody have that repression or that frustration? All right, we have Gordie Howe. Oh, was he a goon? Let's see here. A hockey right wing. Guess he wasn't a goon there. Played 32 seasons. 6-time NHL scoring leader, 12-time AHL, and second in all-time points. Would have been interesting if he was out there being aggressive and argumentative, right? But maybe not. We also have Volker Schlodendorf. All right, I'm probably saying that one wrong. German film director and responsible for The Tin Drum. We also have Nagisa Oshima, a Japanese film director and responsible for Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. John Fowles, a novelist of The Magus, M-A-G-U-S. Christopher Walken, film actor. Liz Claiborne, the fashion designer. And we also have Shirley Jones, the singer and the actress. Richard Chamberlain, a TV and film actor. Herb Albert, the trumpeter and co-founder of A&M Records. And we also have James M. Nederlander, New York theater executive and a producer. John Jakes, a TV screenplay writer, responsible for North and South. Leo Buscaglia, a therapist and a TV lecturer. Rhea Perlman, the TV actress. Carla from Cheers, if memory serves. Also Viscount William Waldorf Astor I, the New York businessman and son of John Jacob Astor I. It's the son of himself, it sounds like. No, it's William Wilder Astor. There we go. Getting it all mixed up with the one in there. Too many words there. That said, I know it's a big-ass taller to try and take inspiration from other people's accomplishments, if you like. If we've even heard of them. A lot of these I hadn't heard of today. But you know what I think? I think that sounds like there's ample ground for you to make your mark, all right? And I know the book's not getting rewritten, so you probably won't get landed in this thing. But you know what? you might land on some other list, all right? So keep going at this, striving after your passions, or just rise to the top if you like. Yeah, because you know what? I think if there's anything I can wish for anybody on their birthdays, it's they're chasing after a passion, finding something fulfilling in life. But if you already got a passion, well, hey, then the hat I'm not wearing is off to you, all right? So there you go. It's just kind of interesting to see what company you shared. All right, that said, I butchered many a name tonight. Let's make up for it today. Not done in malice. It's just hooked on phonics. Doesn't necessarily work for me. But the names, especially the foreign ones. That said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading. All right, except to say your season is spring. Your sign, once again, is Aries, of the Aries I period specifically. Very unique Aries I. And your quality and element is Cardinal Fire. I know a lot of that probably doesn't make a lot of sense to you, but I got some other videos on the channel if you want to check that out and dive in deeper for you. That said, this has been March 31st, the day of Tenacity, from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider. You Stelfers. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description if you're interested in picking up a copy, getting through it quicker than I can for you with the commentary there. That said, this thing makes an excellent coffee table book. You know, it sounds like you got them instances of social candor with your friends and your family. This thing's going to make an excellent coffee table book if you ever have company over and, you know, maybe don't want to crack the ice. You've been doing it for too long. I need a little help in that area so I can go out there and make the fruit punch or whatever the case may be. Let this do the lion's share of the lifting in that respect and have people walking away from the party remembering the party for that. All right, this could be a very great aid in that respect. That said, book having been relayed, not altogether too important. What is important, like I said at the top though, wishing you a happy birthday. So once again, happy birthday, all right? And for everybody else who joined us, I just want to say I hope you enjoyed yourselves, and we see you for your birthday reading, all right? But that said, I just want to thank everybody for the pleasure of your time, and for your birthday boys and girls, it was a privilege to celebrate your birthday with you. I put together a little personal message for you underneath the affiliate link, so if you're interested, go check that out. But that said, for everybody, lest I forget before I take us out, your daily numbers, all right? I forgot to say as much at the end yesterday. Get out there and let the universe shake up your paradigm, all right? So put your numbers, put your theme in there, and you know what? Maybe just help you connect with the universe a little bit. Get your hair blown back with the things that might occur, all right? Help you notice the things in your life otherwise where you can benefit. Oh, now I know where those opportunities are. It just fell right in my lap because I was looking for it. I knew how to see, all right? Might not be any numbers, but you might pick up on the things the universe is putting in your path, all right? That's the point. So get out there and stack up the coincidences, the synchronicities. Let your hair get blown back, all right? Or be like the underground mole and smell as much, all right? Maybe there's some childhood donut smells you smell, and you find a cart, and they got the things that taste just like childhood. There you go. Wish for you that for your birthday, if nothing else, all right? Something exciting. That said, going long, I just want to once again say happy birthday, all right? So don't get frustrated. Don't bottle up your emotions or your instincts, your impulses. Go with your instincts, all right? Let that stuff out. You had a lot of things that could potentially be poison to you, cancers and such. So be free, loose, and easy. Keep that social paradigm going. Rise to the top. Happy birthday. That's right. Take care.